Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. And today we have another brand new set of crazy revenge stories for you. And our first story is, Maya and I get her boss sent to prison. Maya's a good friend of mine. She's a sweet and caring mother of 2 young children. She's also a widow and was an illegal immigrant. Please, let's not make this into a diatribe about immigration laws, okay? That's for another forum. Just sit back and listen to her story. She came over here in early 2008 with her husband and 1-year-old daughter and was pregnant with their second. He worked long hours as a field worker, often 60 to 70 hours a week. She did what she had to do. She got a job at a local donut shop and cafe. At first, she was happy because everyone but the owner was an immigrant, and she had much in common with her co-workers, and the boss told her that she could work many hours, which she really needed. But it quickly became apparent that there was a dark underside to this shop. The owner would only hire illegals. He told them that if they worked hard for him, he'd take care of them. But if they didn't, he'd call immigration and they'd be deported. Then he told them that they all had to work 48 hours a week, and he didn't believe in overtime. He scheduled them to work 6 days a week, regular time, and there were no sick days and no vacation days. She came to me and asked what to do. I informed her that what her boss was doing was illegal, that he was violating Department of Labor regulations, and he was counting on her fear to keep her quiet. And she did one of the bravest things I've ever seen in my life. She made that call to DOL knowing that she could get fired, knowing that she and her children could get deported. Well, the Department of Labor came down and did an investigation and found that the boss owed his employees over $27,000 for the time in question. The boss reached an agreement that he would pay all his employees the back wages they were owed by an agreed-upon date. And this is the part that sends him to federal prison. He calls each employee one at a time into his office. He hands them a check for the overtime they're owed. For each employee, it's over $3,300. He tells them to endorse the check because he needs to photocopy it to send it to the DOL. They comply, he copies it, then he leans over and runs it through the shredder. He tells them all that if anyone complains to the feds, they'll all get deported. Now get back to work. He has the balls to send those copies to labor. Total arrogance on his part, don't you think? She comes down to me crying that she needed that money. What can she do? Well, folks, this SOB is going down. So I'm the one who drops the dime on Mr. A-Hat. The local paper had carried the story when he'd agreed to the restitution, so it was only a matter of a few clicks to find the pertinent information I needed. I called the department's office in our state capital and was transferred to the original investigators, explained to them what Maya had told me and her fears if she complained. They were incredulous at his audacity and vowed to look into it. Usually the Fed machine grinds slowly, if at all, but this was too much for the DOL. In just 2 months, a federal grand jury handed down a 10-count indictment for concealment by trick and making false statements to the U.S. Department of Labor, and for willful failure to pay overtime to his employees. Stupid boss. It turns out that a conviction for concealment by trick and making false statements carries a maximum penalty of 5 years imprisonment, a $250,000 fine, or both. A conviction for willful failure to pay overtime carries a maximum penalty of 6 months imprisonment, a $10,000 fine, or both. The judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison. I don't know if he served the whole sentence, but I bet he never does that crap again. Postscript to this story. Boss went to jail at the end of 2011. Maya and her co-workers stayed on at the donut cafe, which was run, fairly I might add, by the boss's wife. No one was deported. I don't know about the others, but Maya became a U.S. citizen in the fall of 2016. She's since remarried, and the kids are doing well in school. She now works as a secretary at a local company, making far more than she ever did slinging donuts. I'm very proud of her. And our next story. Maybe don't stalk your employees. This adventure plays out over the course of a couple of months. I'm running on very little sleep, and this was about 2 years ago, so forgive me if the details are a little fuzzy. This story is mine, as well as my 2 friends, Cassie and Alyssa. Note that everyone was paid under the table. Yes, I know it was dumb. I'd just gotten out of the hospital and was looking for a low-effort job that would allow me to take in a bit of money while still being able to recover. Luckily enough, Cassie calls me asking if I'd be interested in becoming an in-house photographer and videographer for the barn she worked at. They needed promotional materials and wanted to offer my services as a package for events. A bit of backstory on the barn. It offers these services. This is Canada, so minus 30-degree winters. Is out of the way, 15 minutes out of my small town. Without seeing it online, you wouldn't see it unless you drove past on the range road. Trained and boarded horses, taught kids to ride, had day camps, did parties, so on and so forth. It's owned by an absolute battle axe of a woman named Sarah. She owns many of the horses, did much of the training of both animals and students, contract with local high school, and has absolutely no idea how to run computer technology. Due to this last fact, Cassie and Alyssa became the de facto managers of the entire place. The three of us were in charge of everything more complicated than a pager. Everyone answered to Cassie/Alyssa. They were basically inseparable, while I took care of the tech, with the exception of the website, which was owned and maintained by Cassie. The four of us were the only people who worked there that were being paid, as absolutely everything else was done by volunteers. There were youth, elders, and students, none of them paid. All of them hated Sarah and loved the three of us because we weren't C-words. Another fact about Sarah, she can't get a relationship. She's an old, angry horse lady, so she just naturally exudes an aura of hate that drives people away. Bringing us to Rick. Rick was one of the aforementioned volunteers, a lovely English man who moved here due to my province's industry and worked at the barn on his downtime. Sarah was immediately infatuated. Unfortunately, the 20-year age gap was incredibly off-putting for Rick, so he attempted to maintain a business relationship. Sarah did not appreciate this. Cassie and Rick, however, were much closer in age and hit it off perfectly on the other hand. So Sarah was jealous of someone 30 years younger over a man who refused her. This led to Sarah loudly reprimanding Cassie over absolutely every infraction possible. Anywhere, anytime, including in front of children. The ones I can remember, spending too much time with Rick during work. They work together. Spending too much time with Rick outside of work. This comes up later. Being late. Just untrue. Insulting Sarah. She only told Alyssa and I what happened during a breakdown. No insults were thrown by her. Letting personal issues affect her work. Cassie had just gotten out of a difficult relationship, but she kept it all very professional. Alyssa and Cassie are very close, as I said, so Alyssa naturally got a little bit of flack due to that friendship, but nothing of note. I did not, as Sarah was only like this to women, and I'm not one. I just kept my head down as long as she paid me. All of this had been going on for about 2 months. 2 months of Cassie getting crap on every single day while also doing uni. She was starting to crack under the pressure. And as I said before, Cassie was getting reprimanded for hanging out with Rick outside of work too much. We all were very confused by this for many reasons. Namely, how the F did she know, and why the F did she think it was okay? We solved the how a few days later, when Cassie's mother saw Sarah's very distinctive purple convertible driving past their house, slowing down as it passed. I live across the street from them and personally witnessed it a few times while in my backyard, where I can see the street. By our count, it happened 3 or 4 times a day, off and on for weeks. And that's just what we saw. Supposedly, she would also drive past bars where Cassie and Rick would hang out to check if their cars were there. Beyond jealousy, we were never able to solve the why, unfortunately. The stalking was the final straw. Sarah had gone too far weeks ago, but this was way beyond that. Cassie calmly walked into the communal office and informed Sarah that she would no longer be working for her due to the above reasons, and that she owed her for unpaid time. Sarah proceeded to have a screaming fit about how Cassie needed her and other such insanity, while Cassie walked out, said goodbye to the volunteers, took her things, and left. A few days later, Alyssa proceeds to inform Sarah that she is pregnant and will be leaving as well, due to an unhealthy work environment. I have no balls, and just sent her my invoice for unpaid work, which took 5 months to pay, and ghosted Sarah for a while. On top of all this, the volunteers had, for the most part, only stayed this long for Cassie and Alyssa, which led to all of them leaving. So she was left with no office staff, 1/20th of her hard labor workers, a brand new invoice software that she had no idea how to use, she could puzzle out the old one, 3 fairly large bills for unpaid work, several events lined up, which she was screwed for because of everything else. Some people might think that was the revenge. We somewhat accidentally crippled her operations, but no. Sarah decided to not pay Cassie and I. I eventually got paid less than half of what I was owed several months later after numerous calls. Sarah didn't want to pay Cassie. Cassie did not argue after the first phone call. She simply acted. Earlier, I mentioned that the business was impossible to find without prior knowledge from the website or getting lucky, as well as that Cassie owned and maintained the website. Cassie and I worked out that we would take everything that was ours and leave Sarah to figure it out. In the space of a few hours, Cassie had informed Sarah what was happening, followed by deleting absolutely everything from the website and purging all pictures she had taken for Sarah that she hadn't been paid for. At the same time, I was doing the same for all my videos. I had access to the YouTube channel and was taking down everything I still owned, as well as clearing the backups that Sarah could access if she was able to figure it out. To this day, 2 years later, her business is not recovered. Her website is an early 2000s disaster with iPhone 4 quality photos in place of my semi-professional photos. She has absolutely no videos promoting her various services, the list of services which has been almost cut in half. She lost her contracts with both of the high schools due to Cassie and I talking to one while that one talked to the other. This business went from being incredibly popular and lucrative to being nearly dead in the space of a few months. She sold off most of the animals, and absolutely everyone in the horse industry of our area knows what she's like. Cassie, her new barn are fairly popular there, and refuses to deal with her. All of this for a total of 2,500 Canadian dollars, which she paid 2,000 of in the end anyway. In the end, everyone turned out happy. Cassie becomes a teacher this year, Alyssa had an adorable baby, I have a semi-decent tech career, and Sarah owns a failing business and still has no chance with Rick. Rick is still English and still in a will they, won't they with Cassie. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.